the first thing to understand before you start the update is why we have never updated the Agile Manifesto. So people say, well, you should inspect and adapt and update. But we were very cognizant in 2001 that it was an accident of history that these particular 17 people were in that room at that time. The discussion we had was very much a context of the fights that we had been having in the late 1990s. So when we got done and we wrote the thing, we said, well, should we keep updating this? How do we want to think about this? And at least in the United States, there are two documents that are very well known, and they give different models. And the first was the Declaration of Independence. And the second, rules for society. But you don't update the Declaration of Independence, you know, of the 13 colonies from Great Britain, because that's a moment in time. It's a declaration of something, right? So we decided that what we wrote, the Agile Manifesto, was more like the Declaration of Independence. It was a snapshot, a moment in time, a very particular fight that we were having, a very particular discussion that was current at the time. And it happens to have been really good, you know, lucky for us, that the values we wrote are still good values. And the principles where we did not have unanimity, but they're still pretty good principles. But the values, we got absolute 100% unanimity amongst the 17 people. So that's why we don't update it. So we don't. We say anybody else in the room, it would have been different. Any other moment in time, it would have been different. It's not our job to keep updating this. It's a snapshot. So think of it. It's lucky that it still works, but it was a snapshot. Okay? Second thing, when you do this, many people like to complain. Don't complain. So we knew who we were fighting. You can read that on the right side. You can figure out who our enemy was, but we never said them ever. We said there are people who think differently than we do, and we think that they think in this way. That's not a bad way. It's a way. We think differently, and we think in this way. And we think this is a good way, in fact, a better way. So we wrote the values like, you could think that way and that's okay, but we think this is a better way, right? So it's positive, positive. It's not positive, negative. So when you do that, introspect into yourselves, what is the conversation today that's bothering the hell out of you? You can't deliver value to whatever you're trying to do because something is blocking you. Then don't complain about that, but look for what it is you stand for. That's the you know, sort of the counteracting to that, and then stand for that. Yeah. And so there was the Craftsmanship Manifesto, which is also excellently written, and it says not only this but also that. Another sweet way of writing that, positive, positive, right? So as you go forward, think about it that way, right? There's something bothering you. What is the way of being that is the antidote to that thing that is bothering you? Okay, and then that becomes this year's conversation with this year's people. Okay, that's what I have to say about that. Next, I'm going to take my life in my hands and try doing a screen share. So let's see if this works. Boom, there we are. And let's see if we can do that. Let's see, boom, this should take over. And then if I shrink this down here, then we get like that. Okay, that's good. So now I can see everything. So, and 4 years ago, I did my own rethinking of what was bothering and what was, you know, what I cared about. And what bothered me 4 years ago was how complicated Agile had become. It's no doubt good advice, but it's just way too complicated. And there must be a way to simplify it so that people can absorb it without like being trapped in their own context, their own specific situation, their own rules, you know, whatever. And so I produced these 4 words. And I concluded, at least for myself, that you don't need more than these 4 words, that you can operate from these 4 words. Collaborate, deliver, reflect, improve, and then there are loops inside of there. So you collaborate, then you deliver, then you reflect, improve. But in fact, you collaborate, then you reflect on the collaboration, you improve the collaboration, you deliver, you reflect on the delivery, you improve the way of delivering. You reflect on the way you reflect and improve that. And in fact, you reflect on how you improve and you improve that, right? So they're all the loops and combinations are there. So I've been living with this for 4 years. If any of you interested, there's a global community. There are meetups in a number of cities. We have meetups in Brussels, Paris, Belgrade, Tampa, Florida, Denver, Colorado, coming up Washington, D.C. In Latin America, we have Buenos Aires, we have Santiago de Chile, and we have Melbourne, Florida, just for starters, if I haven't forgotten, you know, any of the other ones. So you can find a meetup, you can start a meetup, whatever. And all we discuss in these meetups is, how do you improve your collaboration? It's a completely open question. So in this Heart of Agile, what I'm doing is to take away all of the rules and say, I do believe that you know how to collaborate. If you just think about it and do it, actually you can do it. Delivery, and let's be careful now, we're not just talking about software. This has to do with, this Heart of Agile has to do with every initiative, human initiative possible, where you're trying to change the world and you're trying to have an effect on the world. So deliver has different meanings in different industries. We have people who are now doing social development projects, social impact projects, humanitarian projects in Latin America and other places. This applies to them just as much. This applies to government as well as product development, and software comes in naturally. So if I say the word software, it's only because I'm a software person, but everything I say applies to like every human initiative. So whatever deliver is, the point is not to do one big delivery at the end, but to do many small probes. And the idea there is that the world operates differently than you think it does. It will react differently than you think it will. And you have to probe into the world many, many times to align whatever your brilliant idea is, how you're going to intervene in the world. And you have to probe to see now how the world is responding to your brilliant idea. So you probe, 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 probe. And from this, you can track and change and optimize your behavior to get the effect that you're trying to get in the world. So that's deliver. So the synonym for deliver is probe. And then I separated reflect and improve. They tend to go together. But my observation is that people do a terrible job of trying to reflect and improve at the same time. So I put them together. I mean, I put them apart. And I just mean stop. Stop for a moment and think. Stop and think, reflect. Okay? And then you go all the improvements.